Complete. No. Authority.
Shipping is a fundraiser for six. Not like. Maybe one is.
I don't know, like that's not tranquil and also like some of the stuff.
Yeah.
Those with tattooing, the sex of the big ones, I think.
I went to the center. I did.
Pretty good. Destination,
Yeah. It's basically indifferent because like you want to go better. It's not. Just try one of these. Reanima Christmas. Oh, I like that. I'm just it may be one of those things that is kind of always, but always hard to 60 and check about per shade or something. Yeah, much better. Which is fine.
What's up, everyone? Just having a good time. Come on. Okay. Y'all ready for my panel? This is one of the coolest dudes you will ever meet. So, you haven't seen Hell on Wheels? Are you just seeing Hell on live? It's top 5 shows of all time. So, anyway, let's give it up for Mr. Anson.
Howdy. Hello. Howdy.
Afternoon.
All right, so I guess just kick it off. Just got a question.
Working on pottery. I haven't come to see your table, but I wanted to hear about the ceramics situation.
Yeah, so I started making ceramics when I was mind if I don't use this?
Yeah.
That's the point.
You guys line up at the mic for questions.
Some small room. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I started making ceramics when I was during the pandemic. And it's just become my way of staying creative all the time, and it's the creative process that I get to actually have control of. And I don't know, I fell in love with everything about it. I was the guy who would walk past the ceramic section in the museum because it bored me stiff. Suddenly I'm interested in ergonomics and the history of vessel making. So, yeah. I don't know. Does that answer your question? But anyways, I've been bringing ceramics. I've been bringing some of my work to conventions, and if you're interested, I still have 3 pieces remaining, and they'll be at my booth. Who has another question?
I think we're over at the mic now.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm Kathleen. I wrote my question down because nervous. Okay, so the other Star Trek captains present first with an overwhelming sense of authority and seriousness, and then with occasional flashes of humor and warmth. being captain kind of dominates their personalities. Between the writing and your portrayal, Pike maintains a warm and outgoing personality that doesn't diminish that seriousness and sense of gravitas you need to be captain. When you began the role, how familiar were you with all those other captains that preceded you? And when were you aware of how different Pike was compared to those other captains in those sense of that personality being, in my mind, so much different?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, I grew up a Trek fan, but my childhood Trek was the original series in syndication. And then the Next Generation started around junior high. And then I went to college about halfway through Next Generation, and I didn't watch TV for about 10 years. I was in school for about 7 of those years. So I kind of missed Voyager, I missed Deep Space Nine, I missed Enterprise. I mean, I've watched episodes here and there, but I've never really made the concerted effort to sit down and watch the whole thing, which I'm sure I will with my daughter as soon as she's old enough. In terms of Pike, you know, I often think that actors are given too much of the blame and or too little of the blame and too much of the credit. I really script is king, and that's a phrase I borrow from Denzel, and he's correct. Script is king, and I just keep going back to the script. The writers gave me pretty much all I needed, and if you look at what we had of Pike, which was not very much, we had a very young, very angsty young man who had not reconciled himself with Starfleet. And it was very clear that in the second season of Discovery, they didn't need that. They needed a different Pike. So I just assumed it was Pike in a different part of his life. And so that was kind of a different character entirely. And all I knew, you have to be very careful of the footprints that you lay down in a TV show, because you're going to be walking those footprints for a very long time. So I go in with more curiosity than I do with trying to do specific things. But I did know that I felt like we had, the machismo captain, which was Kirk. We had the brainy sophisticant that was Picard, and I wanted Pike to represent the heart. That was my goal.
I just want to give fair warning, spoilers for Hell series finale.
Yeah, plug your ears if
Yeah. So I got into that show around junior year of college, and I plowed through it when I should have been studying.
Sorry.
No, because it was so compelling. But it is a brilliant series finale. But out of all the choices Colin was presented with, what did the writers, and I know you were a producer on towards the end, what was the idea or the explanation for it? Out of all the choices made in China?
I mean, what were the choices?
He was given a commission in the Union Army by Grant.
Right.
Collis Huntington was going to make him vice president.
Right.
The railroad.
Right.
And he put on the Union uniform, something he swore he'd never do.
Right.
And then he does all of the choices. He says, "I'm going to go to China, chase May."
Right. Right. Well, I mean, it was a while back.
Yeah.
All I really remember is I hated the finale script. I cannot remember why. Which means I was probably wrong. But I can remember sitting in our makeshift, right, our makeshift conference room out in the cow field.
Yeah.
With Jamie O'Brien, who now, she's still doing Nosferatu. She's now a great showrunner in her own right. But she was a writing producer on Hell on Wheels, and she and very good TV writer named Tom Brady co-wrote the finale under John Worth's supervision. And there's me, John Worth, Jamie O'Brien, and Tom Brady in this room, and to John Worth's credit, he did not say a word. He let these young writers, handle it. And they very, very patiently walked me through why they felt that the script was right. And I can remember coming out, like, shaking my head, going, I don't know. But I don't remember what it was that I wanted to do. So, I miss making that show. I'm very proud of that show. I miss working in Calgary. I miss Cullen. It was one of the hardest jobs I've ever done. It was one of the most fulfilling jobs I've ever done. I'm very, very proud of it. Ending a TV show is, it's really hard because every audience member and every member of creative team, everybody has their own idea of what it should be. And you're never gonna please any of them. So, what I do think that we got right was that we came up with an ending that allowed you to decide what happens next. Right? This is why I refuse to answer people's questions about it. When they ask what happens next, I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
My name is Sarah, and I'm going to go a little bit of a different route and ask you about your background in theater. And if you have any plans, or if the opportunity comes knocking, would you go to Broadway?
Broadway's like one thing I still haven't done. Here's the problem. Theater, there's not a medium in what I do that is worse for parenting than theater.
I understand.
It is absolutely the worst schedule possible. I did a play with Peter Sarsgaard and Maggie Gyllenhaal when their daughter was 4, and it was brutal for them. And I mean, the show was a huge sold out success, and they wanted to extend, and it really was up to Peter and Maggie because they're the ones under the most pressure in terms of their schedule, and they said we'll do one more performance. We'll have one show, one because their daughter is in just it's just so hard. I was offered something in the theater for this summer that I just can't. It just didn't work out. Well, my wife is starting teacher training. If it was in a summer where we didn't have something like that, and I could take my family with me, and it was a limited engagement, yes, absolutely. I would
My
love.
favorite episode of Strange New Worlds is the musical.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I had a lot of coaching. Get away with that on stage. They don't make auto tune for stage. But I'm also, I'm an amateur playwright, and so I think the theater that had reached out, they're going to do a workshop. I think they might do a workshop production of one of my shows. So that would be fun.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Lois. Thanks for coming to Huntsville. So what was it like watching Cole Meany as a teenager and then working with him on Hell on Wheels?
I was very excited. I mean, not just because of Star Trek. I mean, I was a fan of Collins from his films. I remember getting very drunk my freshman year in college and watching the plays. What's the Irish, the film about the Irish bands? Huh?
The Commitment?
The Commitments, yeah. And it was what was great about Collins is he's immediately disarming. And I had there is nobody I would rather have a beer with after work than Collins. He's just such a joke, so full of theater stories, and he can be a real curmudgeon. And our director of photography was he got his start as a camera operator on I guess it was on Voyager. Yeah, and wait, was Colin on Voyager? Was in
Space Nine.
It was Deep Space. So he started on Next Generation, like towards the end of Next
Right.
Generation. Then went to Deep Space Nine with Colin, and ended up directing a couple of episodes, but shot a lot of it. And so they went way back. So Colin just really loved taking the piss out of Marvin, especially when Marvin was. He would do things like Marvin would say, "Okay, now we're gonna move in and do closer shots." He's like, "What do you mean we need to do closer shots? We need to do the fucking scene." He did it 15 times. It's like, "Well, yes, but we're gonna do that," and then he'll turn to me and go. So no, I really love working. It was great to get to know him. So I haven't seen him in dog's age because he lives in Mallorca now.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I've never seen him at one of these things because I just can't get him to
He'll be in Vegas.
leave Mallorca.
He'll be in Vegas.
Hi.
Is he gonna be in Vegas?
Yeah.
Good. I'll have to prepare
I
some.
spoke to you at your table, and we talked about, the film critic I saw was lamenting all the backstory. You were talking about how Hell on Wheels was, did you say serial? And like Strange New Worlds was more
Episodic.
episodic. So I want to know which you prefer and what's the pros and cons of working on both of them.
I mean, well, as a younger actor, I would have told you serialized, period, right? It really depends on the show, doesn't it? Okay, I mean, something, so Discovery was serialized, and I think that worked very well for that show. But for me, my track is the big idea of the movie on the planet of it. And it's hard to do that when you're trying to take care of, when you have to chart these, 8x7 relationships in 1 hour. There's just no room for the big idea of the week. So that was when Alex said, "Hey, we're going to do a show." I was like, I called him very trepidatiously, very, very submissively trying to, ready to fight for my version of what I wanted the show to be. And he said it before the Planet of the Week. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what it should be. But there are certain shows that just would not work with one structure or another. The West Wing is a great example of an excellent episodic show. It would not have worked, and I mean, it would have been the most. Can you imagine a serialized version of the West Wing that dealt with the ins and outs of politics or Christmas season? We've just been watching things.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So I feel like Bohannon has one of the probably most badass entrances of any TV show character ever. Like the way that we're introduced to him shooting in the church and all of that, just immediately you get an idea of who this guy is. As an actor, when you get something like that, when you read it, you get the chills as well? Like,
I mean,
is it as cool to you as it is?
when I read that script, I can remember like it was yesterday. I was sitting in the kitchen of the house that me and David Wilson Barnes, God rest his soul, were occupying. We were doing a show. We were doing a play, at Bay Street Theater. And I remember reading that script and saying to David that I think that might be the best TV pilot I've ever read.
Yeah.
And you couldn't have written a better role for me. And David like said, all right, then we're getting it, and he coached me on my whole audition and just drilled it and drilled it and drilled it and drilled it and drilled it. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I knew exactly how. First of all, I knew Southerners had written it, and I knew exactly what I would want to do with the role. And that doesn't happen then. Right? But you ask about the entrance, shooting in that church in downtown Calgary, beautiful church. That was our first day, and I remember this first time having to deal with that thing Griswold, which is like must weigh 20 pounds, this thing, and not being able to hold it steady for a while. And then when I found out that we were going to go back to that church for the final episode, can't remember if it was in the final episode or the next to last episode. They wanted to go back to that church, and I thought it was a brilliant idea, and I was like, but it was just me having a face-to-face with God, and I was like, wait, hold on. There's that moment with the crucifix. There's got to be another moment with the crucifix, and the director was like, that's a great idea. That crucifix was not theirs. We put it up there, and we don't know where it is. You got to be kidding me. And then finally, it was Marvin who came out and said, wait a second. We have the shot. So what do you mean? He was like, it's in the pipe. We have the shot of the crucifix. I was like, oh! So that's actually a recycled shot from the pilot episode.
Hey, it worked. It worked. And I know there's some behind me, and I apologize ahead of time, but like, I would love to see the Inhumans get the respect that it deserved and somehow make its way back. So really thank you for that show.
I just think Inhumans, if we'd made it today, it would have been streaming.
Right. Yeah.
You can't make the Inhumans like a family drama on ABC.
Yes.
Doesn't work.
I agree.
I
I have a question about where you are now in your artistic quote unquote journey, and say quote unquote, because I want to ask you about your time when you were doing an MFA, right? I understand that kind of sort of engagement with the text, right? Then you did your own drama, wrote your own drama. Now, it may pay a little better, but where are you mentally in terms of engaging with what's written and presented to you? I'm just curious about how that has maybe matured and evolved in your mind.
I think that I've become much more nimble, and I remember when I was in graduate school and Jerry Jones came to talk to us, and said, if I could give you one piece of advice, it would be to develop a nimble, supple everything. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just do that then. But I have managed to develop a much more nimble way of dancing in collaboration. Andre Serban ran my program said the hardest thing you will ever be asked to do is collaborate. And it will be the crux of everything you do for your time. And so, especially in a thing like TV where it happens so fast, you know, on the production, on the creative team, you go into a network and you go, hey, whether you're talking about the series or you're talking about a season, you go, here's our idea. And the network goes, great, here's $100 million. And at the end of this 6 months, you need to have 10 episodes at 52 minutes and 43 seconds exactly, go. And you know, and then you got to figure out how to do that. There's not another medium that operates on that type of. And so it happens really quick. So the material is in development, even on the day you're shooting, it's in development. And so you have to become good at gauging your relationship not only to the material, but your relationship to your relationships. And where you fall in terms of, you know, knowing that if I'm a 25-year-old straight out of graduate school and I'm doing my first TV episode, that is not the time to go to the showrunner and say, hey, I've got an idea. Right? Now I can, but there's different ways of doing that. And there are ways of not doing that. And assuming that maybe you don't know everything. I think that now that's in the world of television. In the world of theater, you know, that's really my gym. And I haven't been at the gym, kind of feeling it. And I want to get back to it. I have no idea if that answers. I'm not sure. Was it ask that question? Not sure if that answers your question. No.
Here, I think it was last year or year before, Star Trek and Grant, they were from the Next Generation. They said it was so droll what they said that if they used a contraction, they said I don't want as opposed to I do not want, they would say cut, stop, do it again.
Well, that may have been Gene, you know.
Yep.
That may have been Gene. I don't know.
No, that's fair guess.
You know.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Some writers, you know, some writers can be like that. In my experience, and I'm not saying that it's because of me, and I'm not saying that I agree with this, but they don't. In my experience, they don't tend to last long, because there's a fluidity that has to happen in TV, especially deeper into the seasons, where the actors become kind of an expert of that character. And you know, I've always, now if it's a playwright and that play has been developed over the course of 5 years, fair game. There's a reason, and it's probably been workshopped 5 times before you got to it. There's probably a reason that there's not a contraction, and it's your job to figure out why, or to talk to the playwright about why that is. But it's not your case. It's not your purview to say, well, that should be contraction. You know, like, it just came to this. They've been living with it for a long time. In TV, everybody's been living with it for 5 minutes. You know, so you're trying to figure it out together.
I was just curious about that because of your academic background, to be honest. I mean, I find it interesting that you have that degree and have taken this route just simply because I've been in school with MFA students before, and I have to say, ones I was in school with, might not have been as broad-minded. So could be as your experience now that you've moved on. But thank you for your answer. Hi, I'm Jen. First, I'd like to say thank you for Ella Wells. That was awesome. But I'm also about to take a little 6-week course on clay. What would you?
On clay?
Yeah, modeling, throwing.
What would you tell someone that's starting out that you've learned since you started?
Oh, that's interesting. That's a great, first of all, it's a great question because I haven't really had the opportunity to teach anything in ceramics apart from like, you know, a nephew occasionally visiting and what do you think? I mean, the one thing I would say, is be patient with yourself. Most people don't get past center. But it took me, if I'm being honest, it took me 3 solid years before I could consistently center, just center clay. And to know what that actually means. You're not gonna get there. Ask your teacher to center it for you. Or you're never gonna pull.
Yeah.
You know, you're never gonna pull, which is also a misnomer. You're not pulling anything. It's completely misassigning the word. You need to understand that if you try to pull, you're gonna tear your pot apart, or you're gonna do some. You got to get your mind out of that, and it's literally, I could throw a pot upside down. I could get a cylinder of clay, right, up, that's still thick, and I could actually throw it upside down. I could throw it to its walls where that thin, and it's a beautiful pot, and I started here and went here. It's about compressing space, and then the clay has to go somewhere. And then you follow the clay. The clay does not follow you. And if you watch as well as you have to go in knowing what you have to go in seeing the vessel you want in your head, and at the same time you must be able to abandon that if the clay is telling you it wants to be something else. Which happens all the time.
What's your favorite technique?
My favorite technique? I don't think I have one yet. I love barrel fire, pit firing, barrel firing. I really like that. I don't know. There's still so much I want to try that I haven't tried with. Yeah. I eventually, by the time I'm an old man, I want a train kiln in my backyard. But that is not a small investment of money or expertise. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard to find good home builders, much less figure out how to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, my name's Jeff, and I was curious, when you do pottery for relaxation, what else do you like to do outside in business or to relax? Like, you like to go camping, that kind of stuff, fishing, that kind of, do you do anything like that? Or?
Pottery doesn't necessarily relax me, buddy. Times I say it doesn't necessarily relax me. There's times I want to throw my wheel against the wall. Relaxation and creativity are two completely different things. I have to. I know very few things about myself. But one of those things is that I have to be producing all the time. Something, whatever it is. I have to be making something all the time, or something's just out of it. Relaxation. I mean, I love sitting on a beach and reading a book. I love to read, and but I got kids. There's no more vacation. I go on vacation and it's a job. Until they get a little bit older, there's gonna be no relaxation. No more sleeping in.
No. You'll get there.
And that's the thing, nobody tells you that.
No.
Nobody says, hey, you're thinking about having kids, guess what? You're never gonna sleep in again. Right? Nobody ever tells you that. And then one day you're like, I don't get to sleep.
Yes.
Star Trek has a pretty big fan base. Some Star Trek projects go 8 seasons, some don't make it that long. Strange New Worlds is very awesome. Do you have any idea why it's a hit and maybe some others aren't? Do you have a clue what makes it so good? And it's very good Star Trek. Thank you.
Man, it's, you know, you can match the greatest of writers with the greatest of producers, with the greatest of directors, with the greatest of actors, with the greatest of, you know, the greatest, most prestigious network, and you could still turn out a turkey at the end of the day. You never know how the stew is going to taste as you're making it, and it happens all the time. A lot of it has to do, obviously, it's not as much now, but still, you know, the launch of a show, the way it's launched, and I'm talking everything from advertising to weather patterns, and definitely the home, can determine a lot of who gravitates towards that area. So, to be honest with you, I have to say no. I don't. I think that some homes are better than others. I do not think that the UPN was a great home, both in terms of their willingness to spend, and it just wasn't. I don't think our audience was there. I think that I'm gonna get in trouble, so I should show.
We won't
I
tell
can see. I can talk about UPN because they're not around anymore. But yeah, I should show.
Can I ask a question about that sets and everything you have in Springfield, like that augmented reality?
I'm sorry. You're gonna have to speak into the mic.
Stan from Huntsville here. I heard that the back screens, as you're filming outside scenes, sometimes they're like an augmented reality. They shift as you're walking on the stage and everything.
Oh, okay.
That's the first one, and it makes it make you seasick, like
Right.
And then who's the biggest factor was over on his set?
I'll answer your second question first. I do not know why, but that is the single most popular question of this franchise.
Really?
And my answer is going to disappoint you. There's not a lot of time for practical jokes. It's an office. And my sets, I try to treat them as such. Not to say that hasn't happened. You know, I found an old audition tape when Jonathan Frakes auditioned for Welcome Back, Kotter. And I had our video team throw that up onto the ready room screen in the middle of the scene. And he actually, afterwards he came up to me, it completely backfired. He came up to me and hugged me and thanked me. He said, that was the sweetest thing. Like, did you see your hair, man? So the first part of your question, you're talking about our AR wall. Okay. This is a newer technology that so instead of having, now we still use blue screen for, the, the, view window and on the bridge. But when we go down to a planet predominantly, we're on our AR stage. And so what that means is you walk into the sound stage and you're immediately confronted by this like floor to ceiling wall that looks like the backs of like thousands of TV screens. And then it sort of curves and you walk around, there's a little hall, on that side, you walk all the way down, down. You turn the corner and you look back and it's the planet. And so all of those TV screens are networks and the ceiling. And they do the digital world building before we shoot. And so that in the long run, it's cheaper. And for us, it's more helpful because we know what we're dealing with. And we're not having to imagine it on top of also acting. It is, you asked about the seasickness quality of it. So the way it works is that the digital environment is built in layers, right? There's at least 3 layers every which way you look from like, so if you're in nature, there'll be like, you know, a hill, and behind that there'll be trees, and then there'll be a mountain, right? And so the program sees through the camera lens. And when the camera moves, those layers will move in such a way to make that distance look as far away or as close as you want it to be. Now, that works from one point of view, and that is dead center camera. To you, it will make no sense. So the camera starts moving, and then all of a sudden, all this stuff starts going. You're like, whoa! And you just learn to focus on something right in front of you when that happens, so that you don't get thrown. But the camera moves are rarely that crazy because we don't really do handheld in that environment. But what's interesting and what's amazing about it is that, say, we need more light in a scene, suddenly there will be a rectangle of amber over here and a rectangle of light blue over here, and those are your lights. You don't have to go set up grip stands and connecting lights and flags. It's all there. And also there'll be a rectangle of imagery that you should have been over here, and now it's there and it's moving, and you're like, hey, look, and it's B camera. So the program can actually, for B camera, carve out wherever it's looking and put the background in there that you want, so that you can shoot more than just one camera. And the software is changing every season that we did it, and by our last season, that software can render animation in real time.
Oh, wow.
So you can actually, I mean, the people operating that system can go and pop people into the background and just boom, there's no render. And it's so new and it's so rare to be able to work on one that our directing producer, Chris Fisher, actually just wrote a book that he's coming out with about using an AR. And my bet is that in 8 years, it will be completely obsolete. It's gonna be replaced by AI.
It looks great on TV.
Yeah, it does. It looks amazing. And when you go and you look at playback, it all makes sense. You'll see it. It's like, oh wow, that's what you do. I think we got time for one more question.
Oh, hi, just quick two-parter. Do you have an absolute favorite character you've ever played? And secondly, from any of the characters you played, have you ever Can you point to anything that you've ever picked up and sort of internalized going forward? Perspective or characteristic, anything like that, that you carry with you?
It's a really hard one for me to answer. Is like, what's your favorite pot you've done? Some were more successful than others. And you know, I could say, you know, Colin Bohannon, but like if on paper, Colin Bohannon is a mass murderer. And well, thing on paper, you know, Cohen and the Swede, they similar. I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't. That'd be like asking me to choose my children. And in terms of taking things away, I'm sure I have. I just there's nothing really stands out to me right now. Sorry, it's a boring answer. Yeah. Okay, one more.
What about,
I was just gonna ask you, what kind of books do you like to read? I know you said earlier you enjoy to read
I read a lot of science fiction.
science fiction. You do.
I'm in the middle of, my mother and I are both in the middle of the Red Rising cycle, which is, if you haven't had a chance, it's well hyped for a reason. So the guy can write, and he's such a good writer. I'm actually kind of ticked off he hasn't written outside of that cycle. He's very talented, young writer, and it is a phenomenal read, and a world is great.
You were into sci-fi before you got the role of Puck?
Oh yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. All right, guys.